In 2013, Dave Eggers published his book The Circle, a dystopian novel revolving around issues of surveillance and privacy. In 2017, a Hollywood movie based on the book, but with changes to some key features, was released. While the book got mixed but overall somewhat positive reviews, the movie got largely negative reviews. Some of the reviews of both the book and the movie criticized the Circle's simplistic and even crude depiction of technology and its negative effect on society. On the other hand, some surveillance and privacy scholars see much value in the book, the dynamics it depicts, and the way it problematizes surveillance and technology. In this video, I want to analyze the Circle's depiction of how the logic and practices of big tech companies affect society, and to comment on which parts I think are solid and which are less so. The Circle tells the story of Mia Holland, a young college graduate which by the power of nepotism is hired for a sought-after job in a mega corporation called The Circle. Once at The Circle, and while trying to fit in and advance, she is challenged by a strange and demanding organizational culture, which sometimes comes in conflict with her nature, personal desires, and the wishes of her friends and family. This friction between The Circle and the rest of Mia's world results in her gradually giving in to the corporate culture and the values it promotes, and ultimately in the alienation of her friends and family. While the book and the movie don't end the same, in both cases the viewer is led to the conclusion that there is something highly incompatible between the vision of this high-tech company and humanistic values, with tragic result to those who surrender to this logic. The Circle itself seems to be heavily modeled after Google, with its big campus, its many dazzling amenities for workers, its constant cutting-edge vibe, and its pretense to have a positive effect upon society. The resemblance also extends to the insatiable appetite to encompass and devour all human knowledge, and what seems to go hand in hand with it, the monopolistic tendencies of the company. That said, The Circle takes this Google inspiration up several notches to show us where the ideology and practices of organizations such as Google may lead if taken to their logical conclusion. So what is the ideology promoted by this corporation called The Circle? In two words, it may be summed up as total transparency. That is, as the total and unfettered exposure of individuals to other individuals and powerful organizations through unlimited access to ever-working, all-encompassing surveillance technologies. Individuals, by the logic of companies like The Circle, are encouraged to self-expose and to adopt this transparency willingly. But, and both the movie and the book make this point, these individuals should be forced into transparency if they don't do so of their own volition. According to this ideology, total transparency will bring about a healthier, more honest society with closer connection between people and more personal joy, more immediacy, less anxiety, less alienation, and less agony. Of course, the point of both the book and the movie is that realizing this vision brings paradoxical results and many unintended consequences. For instance, agreeing to be exposed is forcing on your surrounding this exposure as well, exposure they did not seek and did not agree to. or that social networking is imposed on workers by the employers of such companies in a bullish way that is both taxing and unfulfilling. Undoubtedly, the book does a much better job in depicting this and other nuanced effects of such full-out transparency, as it delves much deeper into Mia's experience and interaction with other circle workers. The whole process of her getting to know the organization, its work procedures, its leisure procedures, and its official and unofficial rules is portrayed so briefly in the movie that it misses the richness of argument made by Eggers in his book. In that sense, and like in many other cases of a movie based on a book, reading the book gives us much deeper dive into the story and its themes than watching the film. Some reviewers pointed out correctly that The Circle constitutes an updated version of Orwell's dystopian vision laid out in his book 1984. Indeed, The Circle takes the same idea of the individual's total exposure to the powers that be and puts it in the context of the 2010s. Thus, instead of government doing the major bulk of surveillance for the purpose of controlling society, here a mega corporation is doing it for the purpose of profit and monopolistic control. Moreover, in the modern version of this dystopia, surveillance comes with a shiny veneer of bright colors, nifty screens, lots of digital eye candy, and a slick interaction with technology which is both pleasant and feels futuristic. Compare this to the grim and crude interaction with technology in 1984, and you get a much more convincing depiction of how people may fall into the hyper-surveillance reality trap. Other elements that existed in Orwell's 1984 were carried through without much alteration. At the top of the list is the use of newspeak in the propaganda efforts of the powers that be. In The Circle, Eggers offers 3 novel newspeak phrases instead of the ones offered by Orwell. So in 1984, the phrases were "war is peace," "freedom is slavery," "ignorance is strength." And in The Circle, they are "secrets are lies," "sharing is caring," "privacy is theft." Eggers even sets these phrases apart from the rest of the text, and one below the other, in a way that shows that this is a conscious reference to Orwell's book, and not just an accident. All in all, I think there is much value in The Circle's depiction of modern surveillance, who promotes it, and out of what motivation. Part of this story's power is that it is set in the near future and depicts existing technologies with slight alterations. Thus, one doesn't need much imagination in order to make the connection between the story and everyday life. Another strength is that its portrayal of the ill effects of surveillance is realistic, in that it presents the whole aspect of lateral surveillance, which is people surveilling each other, for instance using social networks, as a big part of the surveillance problem. Indeed, it is often ordinary people and not necessarily powerful organizations who take information exposed via surveillance technologies, decontextualize it, and exact punishment on the alleged perpetrators in a vigilante rage. Moreover, The Circle talks about the ill effects of lateral surveillance without letting us forget that this surveillance is enabled by the big corporation and serves their purpose. While I don't think The Circle is too crude or simplistic, like some of the critics argue, there are certain arguments that the book makes that don't sit well with me. First and foremost, I have a problem with how the book depicts the action of its monopolistic mega corporation. The Circle Corporation is shown to internalize the ideology of total transparency, not just in the sense of convincing its workers of it, but also in applying it to corporate life, like making meetings that usually happen behind closed doors open. While I believe some workers in a mega corporation like the Circle may have drunk the Kool-Aid and bought their own propaganda, many others, certainly in the upper echelons, recite the propaganda in a reserved and highly utilitarian way. In fact, what we see in corporations of the type of the Circle is a stark duplicity in which they develop tools to make others transparent while remaining highly opaque as an organization. Their privacy is kept. This criticism also applies to the politicians in the story who are willingly and unwillingly made to become transparent by recording video and audio all the time. This is also highly unrealistic, as it is hard to imagine any politician becoming even partially as transparent as those portrayed in the book. Interestingly, the movie The Circle does a better job than the book at portraying the duplicity of the promoters of surveillance technologies, especially in how the movie ends. That said, and as already mentioned, the book does do a better job in depicting other surveillance dynamics and is a better reflection of Dave Eggers' vision. For those interested in surveillance in our society, or in how high-tech giants and social media affect us, and for those who like George Orwell's 1984, I recommend reading The Circle and then watching the movie. In that order exactly.